Cool. The next part we're going to have a look at is that initial process of actually getting on the water. So Paul mentioned the big decisions for the day about what kind of areas we could be using and those big kind of picture plans. Whereas this one's going to be looking at that actually, first off, getting on the water, the first kind of things we might want to do, or even just before we get on the water. So there's lots of different thoughts about warm-ups and things like that. I'm personally not a huge gimmick warm-up kind of person. I'm not a fan of that side of things myself, not with most coaching environment side of things anyway. If someone's turning up for an activity or an experience, then maybe they expect that kind of warm-up. Whereas for coaching or club type activity, it may be a case of warm up as you want to, and then we'll get out on the water. Especially as people are more experienced, they know their own bodies. They know what's normal for them. So that would be my thought around a lot of that warm up side of things. I'll come back to warm ups in a second. But if I am doing a warm up, I'll be observing what's going on. So I'll be looking and I'll be thinking like, are they moving okay? Are they moving comfortably? Is there a little bit of stiffness going on there? And that's my reason for a warm-up if I was doing one, just to see what's going on and see what may be flagged up later on. And through the observation side of things, there's a few different steps that I generally do when I'm observing. I start off with a big picture. So that big holistic kind of observation, like, are things working? So it could start off with, as we're getting kitted up, did everyone put their kit on correctly? Was it working out okay? Yeah, they got kitted up well before I did because I was faffing and speaking to someone, and they're quick and easy and everything's great. Cool, I need to quickly catch up and get on with things. Or if we're actually out on the water, it's that big picture. If we're doing a bit of a paddle in a straight line, did they get to the end destination? Were they able to go from point A to point B in a relatively straight line? That's my big picture observation. The next thing I'll do is start to hone in a little bit more. And the way I like to hone in a bit more is to look at the 5 Bs. So I look at boat, body, blade, and have a think about their brain and the background. So their understanding, is that something which is preventing them from doing something? Or is it the background? Is it a little bit too windy today? Is there a bit too much water coming down because it rained too much overnight, making the ferry glide not quite work properly? Everything they're doing with their boat is set up correctly. What they're doing with their body is set up correctly. What they're doing with their paddle is correct. They're just not doing it quick enough for that environment. So their understanding in the background are letting them down in that instance. So that's what I'd be looking at next in my next level of observation. Why aren't things quite working? And then once I've identified one of those 5 bits, I'd start to think about what can I do to assist that individual? Could I perhaps look at the technical understanding for that area as to why that needs to happen? Or is it something to do with the tactics? Like, are they using the wrong stroke at the wrong time? So is it the tactical approach within that big picture? Or is it the size of the individual, the physiological makeup, their strength, for instance? Are they just not strong enough to cross the flow in that area? Is that the one thing that's letting them down? Or again, the last thing being that psychological aspect. So the thought processes behind it, along with the actual fear factor. So both kind of areas that are going on within our head, not just the physical side of things. So that's my observation side of it. I start off with big picture, then break things down to either boat body blade or boat body blade brain background, depending how far you want to be going. And then I look at the technical, tactical, physiological, and psychological aspects within that. So what can I do as a coach to assist the individual with one of those areas then? So all that observation can happen as someone's getting kitted up, as someone's getting ready, as we're on the bank, maybe doing a bit of a warm up. I'll be looking at what kind of stretching they're doing, what bits of their body are they trying to move around, It could, for instance, be I could get 2 people, let's say, and have them back to back. And as a bit of a warm up, we're passing a paddle around. So if I've got a paddle, let's say the pen's my paddle, I'm passing it around that way. The other person picks it up, brings it around. I collect it off of them and bring it back. That could be my basic warm up. From there, I'll be able to see their range of movements, what they're happy doing. Are they happier moving to the left or moving to the right? What works best for them? And then I can start to think, for this session, perhaps I might see them better breaking out on the left than I will do on the right, because of the way their body's moving, because of the way they're warming up. Or my next level of warm up, perhaps I'll focus on that rotation, but once we're on the water, and just get them really comfortable, really happy with that range of movements, so that I can start to develop a better picture. So that's when I may do a warm up. Once we're on the water, again, I may suggest a bit of a warm up or just getting comfortable with your boat. It's been a while since we've been out on the water. Just get comfortable with your boat, paddle in a range of directions, just get really happy with where things are. And again, I've got this, like my heuristical view, like my rule of thumb as to how things should be looking once we're actually out on the water. So if we're, for instance, if I said, yeah, just paddle around in a range of directions, I'll hope to see them paddle forwards. I'll hope to see them paddle backwards. I'll hope to see them turning. They may do some sideways action. Not 100% sure with that, because some boats you use some sideways paddling, other boats we don't always use it. So it depends on what they're used to and what they're comfortable doing with that. But I'd expect them to see them playing around with that a little bit. If something isn't working, or they're not turning as much in one direction, or they're backwards paddling, they're spinning out all the time, if something isn't quite happening, then I need to think, okay, why isn't it quite happening for that individual? Going down my observation kind of funnel, really. Or is it something just for that individual? Is there a reason why that one individual isn't doing things 100%? Do they have perhaps a shoulder injury that they didn't write down, they didn't tell me about, or anything else? And when I asked them, oh, like, things are looking better on the left than on the right. Oh yeah, I hurt my shoulder 3 years ago and it still isn't quite moving properly. Cool. That's something that's just really important for that individual, which is a bias. It's a one way of things working for that individual, which will change the whole of my picture for that individual. They're doing things a little bit differently to other people. And it's important to know that, because that big picture will change slightly then for that individual. So once we've done that basic warm-up, I may start to set a few basic tasks or a few basic challenges, and just try to see what's happening with them. So my basic warm-up may have been paddling a range of directions. Cool, we've done that. Task 1, just paddling a bit of a triangle. So across to there, to the far side, and then back to me. If it's on some flat water, if it's on a bit of moving water, I might start to look at a bit of a basic ferry glide. Just going, so paddle from this side to the far side and back again. From there, I've got a bit of an understanding as to what they're actually comfortable doing. What are they doing with any edge? What are they doing with any lean? What kind of setup have they got with the angle of their boat? Are they pointing it straight across? Are they going predominantly upstream? Are they paddling like a Duracell rabbit, or are they very relaxed as they're going across? All of this is kind of painting my picture with that first understanding as to what's working for that individual, this first initial couple of tasks. Within this, I'll start to ask the individual a little bit more, gaining better understanding from their perspective as well. So I'll start to ask them, like, what different ways can we cross the river here? Giving them a bit more autonomy, identifying some of that competence and understanding, so that relatedness to that environment of where we are. They may start to tell me about S-turns. They tell me about forwards ferry gliding, some backwards ferry gliding, or they might say, oh, just paddle across. all of this is starting to paint the picture as to where that individual could be or what they like to do. Those are some of the verbal ways I might try and draw out some of that information. Once we're both on the water, I might do things non-verbally. I might sit in an eddy and just ferry glide across and back again. See if they do the same. I might throw in an S-turn every now and again. See if they're doing that similar task. I may start to do a reverse ferry glide. I could do a reverse ferry glide with my eyes closed. So when I notice that my eyes are actually closed, so that they can see that my eyes are closed and I'm paddling backwards across. I'm setting a few basic tasks in a nice relaxed environment and seeing if they're picking up on some of those and copying me and trying to mimic what's going on. Testing their comfort levels without actually suggesting anything, just playing around in an environment, showing them that it's okay to try something, getting them more comfortable, more relaxed in their craft, in that environment with everything that's going on as well. Within this task setting phase and gaining understanding, one thing that I like to avoid as much as possible is the word try. This is just me personally. It's nothing, no big picture or anything else. Just because if we're asking someone to try, how much are they going to try? Is pointing the boat across an eddy line enough of a try? Or is it actually getting halfway across? Whereas if we ask someone to cross the flow from one side to the other, cool, they'll give it their best shot. They know what they're aiming for, opposed to just trying slightly. So I like, there is no try. We either do or we don't. That's what I like anyway. Those are kind of my initial getting on the water kind of activities, thinking about that side of it, setting things up either verbally, getting a bit of understanding between myself and the individual, or by me getting in a boat, which I like to do anyway, playing around with things and seeing if they copy some of the things I do, to see their level of understanding, their comfort levels. If I start doing things with cross bow strokes and things like that and just messing around as much as possible, are they doing the same? Are they comfortable enough to try that? Or do they just think I'm a little bit stupid for giving things a go? That's my initial getting on the water anyway. I'll pop back across to Paul and see if there was anything that he wanted to add with that initial getting on the activity or warm-up side of things.
A couple of things I might want to add. So just dropping back to warm-ups. So maybe we need to think about warm-ups being appropriate to what the activity is going to be. So if somebody's going to jump onto a flat piece of water, which hasn't got, it's got no speed to it, and they're going to paddle nice and gently, then their warm-up can relate to that. It can be a nice gentle warm-up. If you're about to jump onto a grade 4 section of river, you probably need to be quite well warmed up, ready to go. So, that might be quite an extensive and explosive warm-up before you then get onto the water, or as you get onto the water. So that'll be certainly one thing to think about. It's quite an easy way to relate, I think. Yeah. And then the second thing I'd just add as well is Reece was talking about observing people in a holistic way and then a more in-depth way. The other thing that comes into that in-depth way or deductive way of observing is maybe throw some questions in there. So if we use forward paddling as an example, how do we know if somebody's using their feet, and what are they doing with their feet, and where are they gripping their boat? You can't tell from the outside, so I'd need to ask that question. What are your feet doing? Where's your pressure points on your legs? Are you using your feet? Which foot are you? If you paddle on your right, do you push with your right foot or do you push with your left foot? So there might be some some further deductive stuff going in there around all those other bits and pieces that Reece has already mentioned. And that relates to a lot of the skills. You think about edging. How do we edge a boat?
Just to come in on the warm-up side of things, an extra thought that I just popped into my head. Not just the physical warm-up, but the mental warm-up as well. So if we're getting on to that, within a couple of seconds, we're going down grade 4, grade 5 kind of water, have we sufficiently warmed up mentally to prepare ourselves for what's actually going to happen? So are we visualizing what's going on? Are we ready for it? Are we fully awake and engaged for what's about to be going on? So not just the physical warm-up, but the mental warm-up is being important as well for different environments and different things that we're going to be doing. As Julia mentioned earlier, just make sure that people are comfortable and happy with where we are, and that warming up mentally, making sure we're fully engaged with what's happening. If things start to drop off slightly, then we can start to identify that from there then. But it's that switching on mentally as well as physically for a lot of this sport.
I think if we're getting straight on to grade 5, my mind will be pretty wide awake.
Yeah, it's also looking for those triggers, isn't it, with your group and your clients. So I've certainly taken people that have told me, yeah, we've done loads of paddling in the Alps and stuff like that, and we've gone to the Treren, for example, and we've had a walk up the river, and I'm just watching their faces suddenly getting whiter and whiter and whiter, going, maybe this isn't the right venue today. What do you think, folks? Are you happy with these bits? Well, yeah, they're a bit bigger than what I thought. Okay, let's drive somewhere else then. So it's just reading those body languages, reading those messages from people as well.
I was trying to transfer Reese's backwards ferry glide with his eyes closed to a surf venue. And have you ever tried breaking out through surf, getting out through surf with your eyes closed, and whether that be appropriate or not? Might be quite funny.
Yeah, I really enjoy, like, for me personally, playing around with things with my eyes closed, like looking at S-turns, looking at reverse ferry gliding. Those couple of skills are really nice. Some surfing aspects are really good as well. Just to get people to actually feel what's going on with their boat. So they start to feel what's happening with the water. They start to react to what's happening with the water. But yeah, breaking out the surf with your eyes closed would be great, just because you have to time things. Like I'm closing my eyes as I'm speaking to you now, thinking about it. But you have to time things correctly. And when you can feel how the surf's just changing your boat and how it just lifts a little bit, then thinking about that paddle placement, how much you actually need to put pressure on it and how you're going to be rotating your body as you're doing so, it makes every action more purposeful, I find, when I've got my eyes closed, because I'm not reacting to what I see, I'm just reacting to what I feel, which makes things so much nicer. But I could go on about that.
Yeah, you kind of do lose your anticipation though, don't you?
At times, yeah, but if it's a venue that you know as well, then you start to anticipate when you should feel different things. So if you're, for instance, ferry gliding, you start to feel, okay, I should, in about 2 or 3 strokes time, I should start to feel the boat want to turn slightly. And that will be my indicator. I'm either close to the eddy line or I've just crossed it. So I'm anticipating what I feel opposed to what the visual cues are going to give me instead.
In respect of warm-ups, I use them for group bonding, throwing a throwback to each other, but getting them to use Christian names, and that helps when we're on the river. That bond makes it a more enjoyable, friendly day by getting that interaction in early, so that people actually do speak to each other.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing with warm-ups as well. It's like, okay, for me, I was just thinking of, some of the gimmicky type things that you see people doing, where it's like just an obstacle course. This is just me personally. A lot of people do like them. A lot of people do use them a lot. But if the warm-up has that aim of getting people to work better with each other, to know each other's names, and to create a better team thought process, then that's a great reason for a warm-up, and that's definitely a good thing to be having, because it brings the whole group together, and it'll make the rest of the day, the rest of the trip, that much nicer then, because people know who they're actually with, opposed to, oh, you blue helmet, or anything like that. Especially as we all know, we all look very different in and out of our paddling kit. So knowing people's names when we're in our kit can be a very good thing to do. Whereas, yeah, we might know everyone without the kit. Whereas with it, we do look a little bit different as well. No, I like that.